Hello, or konnichiwa. This is Joey Central, and today is the day that you have all been waiting for. This is my Nobushi guide. Now, before I go into her movesets and her mix-ups, like every other guide, I want to first talk about the hero class itself and her playstyle. Also, I want to go into details on what she can get from a light or heavy parry, and how she can punish an opponent who is out of stamina. After that, I will go into details on character matchups and tips and tricks on 4v4 matchups after I'm done explaining the combos and the moves. Before I begin the whole guide, however, I just want to address several things. First, you're probably wondering why there are Japanese subtitles in this video. I will go over that in my future upcoming video that I'm uploading soon. Second, I just want to say this in case it's not obvious, but I'm not the best Nobushi in the game, nor am I the best on the Xbox. As you can tell from the recent Blanchard Gaming Xbox tournament that I had between me and Favoring Raptor. But regardless of that, this guide should help you get on the right direction to mastering the Nobushi class and using her reliably in 4v4s and 1v1s. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Nobushi is a long-range harasser who specializes in keeping distance and using versatile retreats to keeping that distance. She is by no means a light spamming hero such as the Peacekeeper or the Shinobi. In fact, spamming lights is a very good way to getting parried and punished hard. Instead, she uses her light attacks and her bleeds in order to harass and deter opponents from getting close to her. Therefore, she is a good counter to heroes such as Peacekeeper, Berserker, Shinobi, and Aramusha, since those heroes depend on getting in the space of adversaries to unleashing a barrage of mix-ups, mind games, and other sorts of tactics to doing as much damage as possible. The key to succeeding with the Nobushi is waiting for an opening so that you can get that bleed damage in, and once they're bleeding, go all out offense and pretty much do as much damage as possible, while taking care of stamina, of course. Now that we talked about the Nobushi, let us take a look at what she's got to offer. Okay, so I'm going to be going over the Nobushi's passive movesets. Her signature one is Way of the Shark. This trait, as described, allows her to do more damage while the opponent is bleeding. This makes the damage that you inflict, including block damage, do more than usual. Thus, it is usually ideal to go on the offense while your opponent is bleeding. Next, we have Hidden Stance. I will go into much greater details of this move later on in this video, so I'm going to move on and skip this for now. Next, we have Cancel Attack Recovery. Basically, using Hidden Stance or Viper's Retreat allows you to cancel the recovery frames of both your light and heavy attacks. You can also cancel out of your recovery of your kick, usually by Cobra Strike or Hidden Stance, but I wouldn't suggest using Cobra Strike because many people do anticipate that move immediately after a kick, which is an easy light parry and you will get punished for that. So I wouldn't do that unless you're absolutely confident they'll go for a guard break after you whiff it. Next, we have the light combos. Many people don't realize this, but when your second light in your combo hits your opponent, and it has to hit, it can't be blocked or be whiffed. If it hits your opponent, your third attack will automatically hit for free, and it will inflict a bleed, which is very important. So it doesn't matter if your first light attack whiffs, but if your second one hits and the first one misses, usually that means that you will still get the third light attack for free and you will get bleed damage. And I'll go into details in the basic movesets, which should be in about a minute. And then finally, you have the other moves like the zone recovery and the side slash, but I'm going to go into details on that when we go over the moveset. But yeah, speaking of which, we will be moving on to the movesets, and we will be beginning with the beginner's movesets. For the beginner's moveset, we will start off with the 3 chain attacks. The triple light chain, the light heavy chain, and the double heavy chain. In practice, it is pretty much impossible to pull these chains off without getting parried or blocked. But for the sake of the guide, I will show you these moves so you know what they look like. First, I will demonstrate the triple light chain. You can change the direction of each of these lights as long as you attack sequentially. I suggest sticking to the left or right attacks, because the top lights come out a little slower, which makes it easier to block or parry. Also, it is important that if you have your second light attack in your chain successfully hit your opponent, your third light will be free in any direction, and it will pretty much apply a bleed damage. So basically, that second light hits, followed up with a third one. Next, we have the light and heavy chain. This is a little more practical because it's much easier to land that first light attack in than getting a light chain. Also, the heavy in the chain is slightly faster than a raw heavy from neutral. You can use this to catch your opponent off guard, since many players do not expect a Nobushi to throw out heavy attacks. Last, we have the double heavy combo. This is good if your opponent has bleed damage and you want to do some chip damage. The second heavy in the combo will come out faster, especially if it's from the side, and it has some kind of weird flicker to it as well, which could catch people off guard. The best part about this combo is that most heroes in this game don't get much from parrying the heavy attacks. Just remember to keep your eye out on your stamina, because if they parry it, it will do quite a bit of stamina damage, and it could get you out of stam. Now that we went over the chains, I'm gonna quickly go over Nobushi's out of guard sprint attacks. She has 2 ones, the light and heavy. The light one does bleed damage if it hits, but it does count as a light attack. If your opponent is expecting it, then they can easily parry it and punish you big. Then you have the heavy sprint attack, which can in most cases give the opponent a free guard break due to some kind of weird movement bug that she has in that attack. Only use these 2 attacks when opponents are fleeing, otherwise it's very predictable and you can get punished. Next, she has the dash light attacks called Cobra Strikes. These attacks, if successful, put a bleed on the opponent. You can do it in any direction. It is a decent move to apply bleed damage, but I would suggest not doing it too much, because they can be easy to parry and they count as a light attack. You can do the Cobra Strike mix-up, which is guaranteed if you successfully guard break an opponent and do a light attack immediately after a throw. In certain circumstances, this can be more useful than a top heavy from guard break. Another bleed attack that Nobushi has access to is called Viper's Retreat, which is a light attack that can be done by pressing the light attack button while moving backwards. This can be performed in any direction, just like Cobra Strike. It's very useful for canceling light and heavy attack recovery frames and can be implemented in any mix-up. And by the way, I will go more into details on recovery frames later on in the tutorial, but right now we're just going to stick to the basics. Next, we have the kick. A kick can be performed after a light or a heavy attack, regardless on if it hits your opponent or not. It is also worth noting that the kick can be delayed for up to half a second. As you can see, perfecting the timing of the delay can be difficult, but by paying attention to the animation of her weapon and by practice, you will eventually get it down, and you will be surprised how often it throws people off. You can also kick after a heavy attack as well, regardless on if it's successful or not. This can be useful to baiting opponents who are eager to punish you with a guard break. Also, your kicks can wall splat an opponent if they are close enough to a wall. So if you are feeling confident that a kick will knock an opponent into a wall, then you can get a free heavy attack. If they are too close to the wall, however, then they will most likely be able to recover before your heavy hits them, allowing them to block or parry your heavy attack. If you are not near a wall, or you are not confident that you will be able to land a heavy, then you do have the option to press the light attack immediately after your kick hits your opponent to land a guaranteed Cobra Strike. This will give your opponent a bleed, which does good damage and will allow your future attacks to do more damage. We are almost done with the beginner's moves. Next, we have the Sidewinder Swipe. This is performed by dodging to your left or your right and pressing heavy attack. This counts as a heavy attack, and it will hit your opponent in a direction opposite of your dodge. This attack is very useful for canceling out recovery frames, which again, I will go into further details later on in the guide. Finally, we have the Zone Attack. The Zone is a very useful move that the Nobushi has. It consists of two attacks, a heavy and a light that does a bleed. However, the second attack counts as a light and is very easy to parry. Fortunately, you can cancel the zone attack after the first one by pressing either B or circle or any button on the PC that allows you to feint right after the first attack. The first attack counts as a heavy as well, so that is what makes this move very safe to use, as long as you have enough stamina. And keep in mind that the zone cancel does use up about very close to 50% of your stamina, so make sure you have plenty of stamina before using the zone attack. Lastly, I do want to cover one thing. If you block an opponent and you press dodge immediately after, you will pretty much coil. What that means is that you will pretty much dodge backwards a little bit. It's kind of useful because it's not really a dodge, which means you can counter guard break, but there is a bit of inconsistencies. Like some attacks, like Raider for an example, could hit you. So it's kind of inconsistent. I usually don't use it that often, but it's there, it exists. Sometimes it can be useful when dealing with certain classes like the Berserker or the Aramusha. Okay, so that covers all of the basic movesets. So let's move on to the intermediate moveset, where we will introduce Hidden Stance and its basic properties, in addition to other topics. Welcome to the Intermediate Guide. Before I introduce Hidden Stance, I want to go over something important first. In the Beginner's Guide, I showed you that you can get a Cobra Strike mix-up after throwing an opponent. If your opponent is already bleeding, or you just want to do some more immediate damage, then you can get a free top heavy from guard break, which does the most damage. This does count as a regular heavy attack, so you can use a delayed kick to catch an opponent off guard and either get another heavy attack if they get a wall splat, or a guaranteed Cobra Strike by pressing the light attack button. Now let us move on to parry punish. From a heavy parry, you can get a guard break on most heroes who are not long ranged. From a guard break, you can get either a top heavy or a Cobra Strike mix-up, as shown previously in the Beginner's Guide. If, however, you parry an attack that comes from a long range hero, such as the Lawbringer, Valkyrie, Shigogi, the Nobushi, or even some other heroes that have long-range attacks, such as the Kensei or the Highlander, a guard break is not guaranteed. Instead, you have two options. Immediately after the heavy parry, switch your guard to a direction that's different from the parry and perform a Viper's Retreat. Your second option, if the attack did not come from your right, is to do a zone cancel. Just make sure that you keep your eye out on your stamina when you do this, as the zone cancel does use quite a bit of stamina. Finally, we will go over the out of stamina punish. The optimal damage that you can do to an opponent who's out of stamina, if you have them in a guard break, is to do a slight delay on your Cobra Strike immediately after throwing them, just so they can hit the ground, followed by a top heavy when they're on the ground. The reason why you want to delay it is because if you do it too early, they won't hit the ground and you won't get your top heavy. So you have to wait kind of like about half a second. If you parry an opponent who's already out of stamina, then unfortunately the only confirmed damage you can get is a top heavy. However, you can follow it up with either a kick to keep them out of stamina longer, and to get either that wall splat for a free heavy, or to keep their bleed up, or to use a Viper's Retreat. Now that we covered the punishes, we will go into Nobushi's special move, the Hidden Stance. Hidden Stance has a dodge mechanism when in the middle of the animation to dodge any incoming attack in the game. Basically, any kind of attack that you can dodge, you can Hidden Stance. Keep in mind though that once the animation for Hidden Stance finishes, you will be vulnerable to attacks. You will not be able to block in Hidden Stance, but you can dodge in any direction. From Hidden Stance, any attack will start off as the second attack in the chain combo. So if you successfully get one light attack on an opponent from Hidden Stance, then it will count as the second chain in the triple light combo, which means that if that light attack connects, then the next light is the free bleed. You can also heavy attack from Hidden Stance as well, which comes out as fast as a chain heavy. You can also kick from Hidden Stance as well. This is a good answer for an opponent who is eager to guard break you in Hidden Stance, or if they are expecting a light attack to parry. Also, you can counter guard break in Hidden Stance, so if your opponent tries to guard break you, you can counter guard break. This is what makes Hidden Stance a great answer to 50-50s, such as the Warden's Shoulder Bash cancel into guard break, or the Valkyrie's second light attack in the guard break instead of the sweep. Hidden Stance is also a powerful answer to non-50-50s, such as the Lawbringer's push shove from neutral, the Centurion's jab or kick, or even the Gladiator's toe stab or Shigoki's Demon Embrace. Once you have successfully Hidden Stance their attack, you can usually follow it up with two light attacks in the direction that their guard was previously not in. Lastly, you can use Hidden Stance to feint both a light or heavy attack, only if they are not in the middle of a chain. This can be useful for throwing your opponent off guard, and it allows you more access to different mix-ups, which we will be covering in the advanced guide. While Hidden Stance has a lot of benefits, there are some nuances and drawbacks. First, Hidden Stance costs stamina. While in Hidden Stance, you will not be able to regenerate stamina. Also, once you do exit Hidden Stance, your stamina will not regenerate until approximately 3 seconds after exiting the Hidden Stance. So that means if you're low on stamina, this will leave you vulnerable to going out of stam from heroes that can drain your stamina, such as the Warden or Centurion for an example. So be extra careful when using hidden stance by always keeping your eye on your stamina bar and giving yourself time to bring your stamina back, even if you're trying to finish off your opponent who is critically low on health. Stamina management is key with Nobushi, and if you gas yourself often, then your opponent will capitalize on it and they will punish you severely. Overall, hidden stance is a powerful move, and properly utilizing this move is what separates the decent Nobushi players from the novice Nobushi players. That concludes the intermediate guide. In the advanced guide, I will first go over frame canceling, followed by mix-ups. I'll see you there. Welcome to the advanced guide. Here, you will finally begin to see where the magic happens. First, I want to talk about attack recovery frames and how to cancel them. Let us revisit some of the moves that we looked at in the beginner's guide, such as the light and heavy attacks, the sidewinder swipes, the Viper's retreat, and the zone cancel. In case you haven't noticed, the attack recovery for these moves are quite slow, meaning that without having any means necessary to canceling these recovery frames, we're pretty vulnerable to attacks or guard breaks. Fortunately, there is a way that we can cancel these recovery frames. By canceling her recovery frames, it gives her access to follow-up attacks or other various mix-ups. There are several options for frame recovering depending on which move we use. For Sidewinder, we can cancel the recovery frames by two ways, either by dodging left or right, or by using the Viper's Retreat. For recovering from Viper's Retreat, you can dodge either left or right, or by using a Sidewinder swipe. To recover from the zone cancel, you can again dodge left or right, or use Sidewinder swipe. Finally, to exit the recovery frames of a light or heavy attack, you can use either a Viper's Retreat or a kick. A kick is a very powerful option to use against opponents who are very eager to punish with either a guard break or an attack as a whiff punish. And Viper's Retreat is also pretty effective as well because your opponent may dodge directly into it when they begin to dodge forward into their assault when they see that you whiff any of your attacks. This is pretty crucial to mastering if you are serious about maining Nobushi, because this is one of the most powerful attributes that she has going for her. Now that we went over frame recovery cancellation, let us move on to mix-ups. Welcome to the mix-up guide. Here I will be showing you some of the many mix-ups that she has access to. The number of possible mix-ups that she has is a lot, much more than what I will be showing. The reason why I wanted to show attack frame recovery cancellation first was because that information is crucial to utilize when coming up with your own mix-ups. Let us begin with a rather simple one. First, feint a heavy attack and go into guard break, followed by a top heavy. This is simple, but a surprisingly effective mix-up, especially to those who are expecting a light attack. This is very useful if you have thrown a few light attacks and you have a feeling that your opponent is going to try to parry your next one. After doing the top heavy, you can follow it up with either a kick or a Viper's Retreat. You can even follow it up further by canceling your Viper's Retreat recovery into a Sidewinder or doing a zone cancel. Just make sure to not run out of stamina, especially if you do use the zone cancel. Next, we are going to modify our previous mix-up by utilizing hidden stance. Start with a light attack, cancel into hidden stance. Then from hidden stance, feint a heavy attack into guard break followed by a top heavy. This can be surprisingly effective on the opponent expecting either two lights or a kick. Another useful mix-up that can catch your opponent off guard is to cancel a left heavy attack using hidden stance followed by a zone cancel. After the zone cancel, you can dodge to cancel the recovery frame to catch up on stamina, or if you do have quite a bit of stamina left, you can cancel the recovery of your zone cancel to do a right sidewinder, followed by a left or top Viper's Retreat. This will use about 95% of your stamina, assuming that you started from full stam. So make sure to pause anytime your stamina runs low to give you time to recover. Another mix-up that you can do is to do a side light and chain a top heavy while moving backwards, followed by a delayed kick. If your kick connects, then you can follow it up with a Cobra Strike or a heavy if the opponent hits a wall. I forgot to mention this in the attack recovery cancellation topic, but you can use hidden stance to recover from a kick if you whiff. This is important because if you try to cancel it with a Cobra Strike, then there is a very good chance that it will get parried, giving your opponent a free light parry punish. And if you don't, then there is a chance that they can guard break you. So unless you are very low on stamina, always hidden stance if you miss your kick, because you can counter guard break from hidden stance. Finally, you can feint either a left or right heavy and immediately dodge in the same direction that you feinted your heavy in and press heavy to perform a sidewinder. This can catch people off guard because your opponent may not be able to react on time to the fact that you are A, doing a sidewinder, and B, be able to guard in the correct position on time. Also, if you do connect a top Cobra Strike, you can immediately follow it up with 2 light attacks. The first light attack will count as the second light combo, meaning that if it connects, then your third light is free and will do extra bleed damage. This can surprisingly throw people off guard, but do it sparingly as it can easily be countered if predicted. I am aware that there are plenty of other mix-ups that I have not covered in this guide, but as long as you remember your attack recovery cancellations and the fact that you can follow them up with, then coming up with your own mix-up should not be hard. These mix-ups should help you get on the right track. Always remember to keep your eye on your stamina and never go overzealous when your opponent is low on health or bleeding, as this can result in going out of stamina and possibly swinging the momentum to your opponent's favor. Also, your biggest enemy is predictability. Nobushi light attacks are one of the easiest to parry in the game, and if you're being predictable, then you're going to be a dead Nobushi. Always mix up your moves and keep your opponent guessing. Nobushi's greatest strength comes from her unpredictability, and with enough practice and dedication, you will get to that level. If you have any other mix-ups that you would like to share, then feel free to do so in the comment section. That concludes our advanced moveset guide, and we will be moving on to character matchups. I am not going to spend time going over every single hero. Instead, I'm going to focus on the good and the bad matchups for Nobushi. Let's go over the good matchups first. The characters that she can counter best are heroes that depend on 50-50s, including Shinobi, Warden, and Valkyrie. The Shinobi depends on the player falling for the quad dash by dodging too early so that he can get the kick and free damage during the player's dodge recovery. Nobushi can negate that by utilizing her hidden stance. Even when her animation finishes, she can still dodge to avoid the kick. She can also follow up through her hidden stance with two light attacks in the middle of the Shinobi's backflip, which negates his greatest strength, spacing. Nobushi does a good job at countering Warden as well because she has 2 answers to his shoulder bash. She can dodge and quickly follow it up with a sidewinder, or she could just hidden stance his shoulder bash. Since she can counter guard break and hidden stance, this completely negates Warden's shoulder bash mix-up. Finally, the Valkyrie can perform a sweep if she performs either 2 successful light attacks or the shield bash. The hidden stance can avoid the shield bash, and it can also avoid a Valkyrie's 50-50, which is to either guard break or sweep after getting those 2 light attacks in. As long as you remember to guard break after blocking her light dash attacks, and just blocking her lights in general, then she should not be too much of a problem. Now that we went over the good matchups, let's go over the bad ones. Nobushi's worst matchups, in my opinion, are Lawbringers, Orochi, and the Shaman. Let's start with Shaman. She is, by all counts, a strong hero. A little too strong. Many of her attacks are safe, her recovery is non-existent, and her attacks do quite a bit of damage. Until she gets nerfed, then the best way to play against her is to go aggressive on her and to bait out her spinning heavy attack and parry it. If she does get a bleed on you, do not panic. Keep the pressure on her until your bleed wears out so that you don't give her a chance to bite you. A side light can cancel out her leaping attack, but a Cobra Strike is not fast enough to interrupt it. Also, her leap attack is very fast, but it can be hidden stanced. Once you hidden stance it, then punish her with 2 light attacks and make her bleed. From there, go on the offense and do as much damage as possible. That about summarizes the Shaman matchup. Now let us move on to the Orochi. For a hero who only has 2 reliable moves, he can give us quite a bit of trouble. Orochi has the Storm Rush, one of the most powerful whiff punish tools in the game. A good Orochi will try to bait out your zone cancel or your Sidewinder with the Storm Rush so that he can hit you and get 2 top lights. This will do over 2 bars of damage to your health. So avoid whiffing your attacks at all costs. The key to beating the Orochi is to be patient. Always keep your guard up top because his top lights come out very fast and they do the most damage. If you anticipate that he is going to zone, then go into hidden stance and follow it up with 2 lights. Use your side lights and Viper's Retreat to keep him at a distance, but make sure to cancel your recovery frames at all costs, as one well-timed Storm Rush can do a lot of damage. Many Orochi players love to backdodge a lot in order to go into their Storm Rush, so you can punish this with a forward Cobra Strike. When they are bleeding, refrain from using zone cancels or sidewinders as much as possible, as their top lights will come out faster and they will hit you. Instead, utilize your side lights as much as possible and do your best to keep your distance so he can't get those top lights or zone attack. If you can parry his light attacks, then either use your top heavy or guard break him if he is out of stamina to utilize your out of stam punish to maximize damage. The key to beating an Orochi is patience and not letting your guard leave the top. Finally, we will go over Lawbringer. Most Lawbringers are going to turtle and only use light attacks. When they block your attack, they can utilize their block shove mix-up to either get a light attack in or a guard break followed by a side heavy. Against these Lawbringers, your best bet is to play patiently and find a pattern. Do they throw out attacks? Do they use shove from neutral when you're not out of stamina? Do they feint heavies into lights? Do they go for parries? If you are facing a Lawbringer who does throw shoves from neutral when you're not out of stamina, then your best course of action is to use the hidden stance to dodge the shove and follow it up with 2 lights. If the Lawbringer is turtling and he only throws out light attacks and guard breaks, then your best option is to either parry his lights and follow them up with either a top heavy or guard break or the hidden stance. Regardless, Lawbringer is the toughest matchup for Nobushi because we do not have any options to opening up opponents who turtle up. Plus, If a Lawbringer parries any of our lights, then he will get a free unblockable heavy that does a huge amount of damage, that does over 1/3 of our health. The only chance at beating a parry-happy Lawbringer is to utilize the mix-ups in the advanced guide to bait him to get a free guard break. This, however, requires a lot of mind games, turtling, and patience. Ultimately, beating a good Lawbringer is all about reading him and coming up with a strategy that can exploit his playstyle. We are almost done with this guide. The last thing I want to talk about are tips and tricks to utilize in 4v4s, such as feats to use, handling ganks, and strategies for each specific game mode. I'll see you there.
Victory!
Last, we are going to go over 4v4s, where Nobushi really shines. But before we can put her on the battlefield, we need to make sure of two things: that she is properly geared, and that she has the right feats. For gear stats, check out my video in the description. It may have been last season since I've last made that guide, but my current gear stats for this season has not changed so far. But I will make a future video if any of that changes. Here, I will go over the feats that I use in each game mode. First, let us go over the tier 1 feats. In Dominion, I go for body count. Nobushi does a very good job of clearing the minions at the middle of the map. In every other game mode, however, I go for speed revive. I never use Iron Lungs because, in my opinion, it is one of the most useless feats in the game. Now, I'm going to go over tier 2 feats. With my current gear stats and build, I go for revenge attacks because this helps obtain revenge much faster. Smoke Bomb is not bad either in some situations. Arrow Strike is just too inefficient to get a job done, and it's usually easy to avoid, and only rewards a small amount of damage. For the tier 3 feats, Sharpened Blade is a good offensive feat because it can really help kill enemies much faster in gank situations. The other feat, Second Wind, is good to obtain a small chunk of health. She used to have a feat called Blissful Rest, which allowed her to reobtain all of her health. Unfortunately, Ubisoft sucks, so they replaced it with Second Wind. Now, it's kind of a toss-up between Sharpened Blade and Second Wind. In Dominion and Deathmatch, I usually go for Sharpened Blade because either the zones in Dominion or the healing power-ups in Deathmatch provide sufficient enough healing. In Tribute, however, Second Wind is the way to go, simply because healing is very scarce in that game mode. For 4th tier feats, I usually go Fire Trap in all game modes simply because I find it quite versatile. In Dominion, I could place it on a zone that my team's not occupying when the enemy is breaking, or if I want to scatter a group of enemies and inflict a decent amount of fire damage. It's very useful in Tribute because it does a very good job at deterring your enemies from taking one of your shrines when your team is defending. Stalwart Banner is an okay choice, but I personally do not use it because the healing is subpar and the enemy can easily knock you out of its healing radius. For a tier 4 feat, I find this to be extremely underwhelming. Aerostorm, in my opinion, is the worst feat due to its inconsistency. It's either a hit or miss with it. For those reasons, Fire Trap is the go-to feat for all game modes. Now that we went over feats, let us go into surviving gank situations. If there is one hero who is great at taking down multiple opponents, then it's the Nobushi, no doubt. I will show you how to utilize her magic to thwarting your opponent's gank attempts. When you have multiple enemies attacking you, try your best to block as many of their attacks as possible. Keep an eye out on all of your attackers, especially the one who is trying to guard break you, or have crowd controls such as Shigogi's Demon Embrace, Lawbringer's Long Arm, Valkyrie's Shield Bash and Sweep, and Shaman's Predator Launch and Bite. If you are bleeding and the enemy team has a Shaman, then focus on that Shaman and do everything you can to prevent her from getting that bite. Similarly, when you're dealing with an enemy Shigogi, then focus on that Shigogi, because if he gets that Demon's Embrace on you, then you'll be incapacitated while his allies get their free attacks in, resulting in certain death. Once you block and parry enough for their attacks, you will get revenge. Try popping your revenge when at least one of your opponents throws an attack at you. If timed correctly, then everyone who hits you will be knocked to the ground. When in revenge, utilize your zone cancel and sidewinder swipes as much as possible. My suggestion is to switch targets after every zone cancel and sidewinder, as this will reduce the chance of your attacks getting parried. These attacks have incredible range, meaning that it will hit enemies that are within a 6-foot radius from you. Don't forget to parry your opponent's attacks as well, since many opponents are eager to letting their heavy attacks fly when they outnumber their opponents. Once parried, they will fall to the ground, allowing you to get either a free top heavy or a full zone attack. Remember to dodge to the side after every sidewinder, and use sidewinder after every zone cancel, as this will cancel the recovery frames, allowing your attacks to continue flowing, preventing enemies from being able to guard break you or disrupt your offensive maneuvers. Finally, I will go into a strategy on how to clear minions as fast as possible. The best moves to use for clearing out minions is Sidewinder and Zone Cancel. I recommend getting in the middle of the group of minions before doing your Zone Cancel, and follow it up with the left or right Sidewinder after canceling your recovery frames. Using Sidewinder uses far less stamina than using unlocked heavy attacks. That just about covers everything that I wanted to cover in this guide. If you have any further questions that were not covered in this guide, then leave it in the comments section down below and I will answer it as soon as I can. If you found this guide to be helpful, then I would greatly appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content. With that said, this is Joey Central, signing off.
Zone A.